Thailand's underworld isn't just ruled by flashy gangsters or international crime syndicates. It's dominated by Chao, powerful local crime bosses who operate like provincial mafias. From drug trafficking to illegal gambling and protection rackets, these shadowy organizations wield immense influence over their territories, often with deep ties to corrupt politicians and law enforcement. But how did they rise to power? And how do they continue to thrive despite government crackdowns? Let's dive into the world of Chao and uncover the dark secrets behind Thailand's criminal underbelly. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on the hottest crime content from around the world. Now, let's get started. The story of Thailand's Chao begins in the shadows of history, where power wasn't always held by kings or governments, but by those tough enough to seize it. These provincial crime syndicates didn't just pop up overnight. Their roots stretch back to a time when Thailand's countryside was a patchwork of villages and small towns, each run by local strongmen who kept order in their own way. These weren't polished gangsters in suits like you'd see in a Hollywood movie. They were rough around the edges figures, often respected and feared in equal measure. They settled disputes, protected their people from outsiders, and made sure everyone knew who was in charge. Over time, as the world around them changed, these local tough guys evolved into something bigger, something more organized, and a whole lot more dangerous. Back in the day, Thailand wasn't the centralized nation it is now. Before the late 19th century, when King Chulalongkorn started pulling the country together under a stronger Bangkok-based government, power was scattered. Out in the provinces, far from the royal palace, communities leaned on these local leaders to survive. They weren't called Chao yet. That term, meaning godfather, came later. But they were the seeds of what was to come. A guy might have been a village headman or a merchant with a knack for throwing his weight around. He'd have a crew of loyal followers, maybe some muscle to back him up, and he'd make sure his territory stayed under his thumb. If bandits rolled through or a rival tried to muscle in, he'd handle it, often with a machete or a stern word that carried the promise of worse. People paid him tribute, whether in rice, cash, or loyalty, because he was the law when no one else was around. As Thailand modernized, these local strongmen didn't just fade away, they adapted. The country was opening up, roads were built, trade picked up, and cities like Bangkok started pulling in more influence. But the provinces stayed wilder, less tamed by the central government. That's where these figures saw their chance. By the early 20th century, they weren't just protecting villages anymore. They were running smuggling rings, tapping into opium routes coming down from the Golden Triangle, that rugged borderland where Thailand, Laos, and Myanmar meet. The world was getting smaller, and these guys were smart enough to ride the wave. They turned their local sway into something more structured, more like the crime families you'd hear about in places like Sicily or Chicago, but with a distinctly Thai flavor. What really set the Chao apart was how they built their organizations. At the top, you've got the big boss, the godfather himself. He's the brains, the charisma, the guy who knows how to play the long game. He's not out there cracking skulls. He's too smart for that. He's usually someone who's been around the block, maybe started as a scrappy kid who fought his way up, or inherited the gig from a father or uncle who ran the show before him. People in the province know his name, even if they don't say it too loud. He's got a reputation that does half the work for him. Folks fall in line because they've heard the stories, and they don't want to test if they're true. Under him, there's a layer of lieutenants, the guys who make things happen. They're the ones who manage the day-to-day, whether it's collecting debts, shaking down a shopkeeper, or moving a shipment of goods under the table. They're loyal to the boss, But they've got their own little crews too, so they're not just foot soldiers, they've got some juice of their own. These lieutenants are often tied to the boss by blood or old favors, the kind of bonds that don't break easy. They know the province like the back of their hand, every back road and quiet corner where deals can go down without prying eyes. They're the glue that keeps the operation tight, making sure the boss's orders get followed and the money keeps flowing up. Then there's the muscle, the enforcers. These are the tough guys who don't ask questions, just swing fists or pull triggers when they're told. They're not masterminds, they're hired for their brawn and their willingness to get dirty. A lot of them come from the same rough streets or poor villages as the people they're intimidating, which makes it all the more brutal. They've got nothing to lose. The boss keeps them fed and paid, and in return, they keep everyone else in line. If a shop owner forgets to pay up or a rival steps out of bounds, these are the ones who show up at the door, no words needed. They're the visible edge of the Chao, the part people see and remember. But it's not just about the criminals inside the group. What makes the Chao so powerful is who they know outside it. These syndicates don't operate in a vacuum. They're tangled up with the people who wear badges and sit in government offices. A local police chief might be on the payroll, looking the other way when a truck full of contraband rolls through. A politician might owe his election to the Chao's ability to turn out votes or scare off the competition. These connections go deep, built over years of backroom deals and quiet handshakes. The Godfather doesn't just run a gang. He's got tendrils in the system, pulling strings to keep his empire safe. It's not always cash-changing hands. Sometimes it's a favor, a promise, or a threat that doesn't need to be spoken aloud. Where the Chao really shine, though, is in their regional influence. Thailand's got 77 provinces, and according to the authorities, these groups are dug in across 39 of them. That's half the country where they've got a foothold, and each province is its own little kingdom. In the north, up near Chiang Rai or Mae Hong Son, they might lean hard into the drug trade, tapping those old opium trails that still hum with activity. Down south, in places like Songkhla or Pattaya, they might focus more on smuggling goods or running underground casinos for tourists and locals alike. The east, along the Cambodian border, could be about moving people or knocking off shipments before they hit Bangkok. Every region's got its own flavor, its own hustle, and the Chao know how to play to the local crowd. Take a province like Chonburi, just east of Bangkok. It's got Pattaya, a city that's half beach paradise, half neon-lit chaos. The Chao there don't mess around. They've got their hands in the nightlife, making sure the bars and clubs pay their dues. They've got eyes on the ports too, where stuff comes in and out faster than customs can blink. The boss might live in a big house up in the hills, quiet and classy, while his lieutenants work the streets below, keeping the machine humming. The cops know who's who, but a few well-placed envelopes keep the raids light. It's a system, slick and steady, built to last. Contrast that with somewhere like Udon Thani in the northeast. It's poorer, more rural, closer to Laos. The Chao there might be less flashy. Think pickup trucks instead of shiny SUVs, but they're just as deep in the game. They've got the border in their pocket, moving whatever needs moving, and they've got the local bigwigs eating out of their hand. The influence isn't loud, it's woven into the fabric of the place. People don't cross them because they've seen what happens when you do, and the stories stick. Each province has its own Chao style, shaped by the land, the people, and the opportunities waiting to be grabbed. That's how they've thrived, not just as crooks, but as kings of their own turf. In Thailand's provinces, the Chao don't just sit back and collect rent, They're neck-deep in a web of dirty business that keeps their empires humming. These aren't small-time hustlers shaking down street vendors for pocket change. They've got their hands in big, messy trades that rake in cash and keep the wheels of their operations spinning. The drug trade is a cornerstone, and it's no surprise why. Thailand sits smack in the middle of Southeast Asia, a stone's throw from the Golden Triangle, where opium and heroin have been king for decades. Those rugged hills where Thailand, Laos, and Myanmar collide churn out narcotics like a factory, and the Chao are the middlemen who make sure it gets where it's going. They've got the connections to pull it off. Up north, near Chiang Rai or Mae Sai, the syndicates link up with growers and traffickers across the border. It's not a straight line from the poppy fields to the streets. There's a whole chain of players, and the Chao are the ones greasing the gears. They move heroin, sure, but these days it's methamphetamine that's the real moneymaker. Known locally as yaba, these little pills flood the region, cheap and addictive, and the Chao have mastered the art of getting them south to Bangkok or even overseas. They've got mules running back roads, boats slipping along the Mekong River, and trucks dodging checkpoints with a little help from friends in uniform. It's a high-stakes game, but the payoffs are massive. Millions of dollars flowing back to the godfathers who call the shots. The drug business isn't a solo act. They're plugged into networks that stretch across Asia, from Myanmar's warlords to Malaysian distributors. A Chao boss might never meet the Shan State kingpin cooking meth in the jungle, but their lieutenants know the right people and the product keeps moving. It's not just about muscle. It's about trust and reputation. If a shipment goes missing or a deal goes sour, heads roll, literally sometimes. The syndicates keep it tight, relying on family ties or old-school loyalty to make sure no one talks. And when the heat comes down, they've got enough cash to buy silence or scatter until it blows over. Closer to home, the Chao run the show with gambling and protection rackets, the kind of street-level hustles that keep their grip on the provinces ironclad. Gambling's illegal in Thailand, but that doesn't mean it's not everywhere. Underground dens pop up in back rooms and warehouses, offering card games, dice, cockfights, anything that'll get a crowd betting. The Chao don't just tolerate these spots, they own them. They take a cut of every pot, and if you want to run your own game, you'd better pay up or pray they don't find out. In a place like Pattaya, where the nightlife never sleeps, they've got casinos tucked away behind fake storefronts, raking in baht from tourists and locals alike. The enforcers keep the peace, breaking up fights or breaking kneecaps, depending on who's causing trouble. Protection rackets are the other half of that equation. If you've got a business in a Chao territory, a bar, a market stall, a trucking company, you're paying for security. It's a polite way of saying they won't torch your place or beat you bloody. Shopkeepers hand over cash every month like it's a utility bill, and in return they get to keep breathing easy. The syndicates don't mess around with freelancers either. If some punk tries to extort their turf, he's dealt with fast. It's a racket, sure, but it's also a twisted kind of order. People know the rules, and the Chao enforce them with a heavy hand. In provinces like Chonburi or Songkhla, entire economies run under their shadow, from fishing boats to karaoke joints, all kicking up to the top. What makes all this work, though, isn't just the guns and the grit. It's the corruption that oils the machine. The Chao don't survive by dodging the law, they thrive by owning it. Cops are a big part of the picture. A local police captain might get a fat envelope every month to ignore that shady warehouse or tip off the syndicate before a raid. It's not every cop, but enough of them play ball to keep the system humming. In some towns, the police station and the Chao headquarters might as well be the same address. The higher up you go, the murkier it gets. Provincial chiefs and even national figures have been caught with their hands in the pot, though proving it's another story. Politicians are just as deep in the muck. The Chao don't just bribe them, they help put them in office. Out in the provinces, elections aren't always about speeches and ballots. Sometimes it's about who can deliver the votes or scare off the other guy's supporters. A godfather might bankroll a campaign, sending his boys to knock on doors or break a few windows, depending on what's needed. In return, that politician looks out for his benefactor, killing investigations or pushing laws that keep the heat off. It's a quid pro quo that's been running for decades. Take a province like Nakhon Si Thammarat, down south, where the syndicates have long tentacles. A local mayor might owe his chain of office to the Chao, and when a drug bust gets too close, he's on the phone making it disappear. The ties go beyond cash and votes. Sometimes it's personal. Marriages between syndicate families and local elites, kids growing up calling cops uncle. It's a web that's tough to untangle, and that's the point. The Chao don't just break the law, they bend it, twist it, make it their own. A police raid might nab a few low-level guys, but the big fish? They're untouchable, shielded by a wall of favors and fear. Even when the headlines scream about a crackdown, the insiders know it's theater. Names might change, but the game stays the same. The scale of it all is dizzying. In a province like Udon Thani, up near the Lao border, the Chao might run a meth pipeline while keeping the gambling dens packed and the markets protected. Every layer feeds the next. Drug money buys off cops, gambling cash funds the muscle. Protection fees keep the lieutenants happy. It's a machine that doesn't stop, doesn't sleep, doesn't forgive. If a rival gang tries to move in, they're not just fighting thugs, they're up against a system that's got the law, the politicians, and half the province in its pocket. That's why the Chao don't just survive, they dominate. It's a dark kind of genius, really. They've taken the chaos of Thailand's provinces, the poverty, the weak spots, the old loyalties, and turned it into power. The drug trade keeps them rich, the rackets keep them feared, and the corruption keeps them safe. Every deal, every handshake, every late-night payoff locks it tighter. Out in the countryside, where Bangkok's reach feels faint, they're the ones who run the show. You can't walk into a bar, bet on a fight, or start a business without brushing up against them. They're not ghosts in the shadows. They're the shadows, and they've made sure everyone knows it. Thailand's government has been swinging at the Chao for years, trying to knock them out of the game. The punches started landing harder in the 1980s when the military junta running the show got fed up with these provincial kingpins flexing too much muscle. Operations rolled out with big names like Clean Sweep, where cops and soldiers stormed into towns, rounding up anyone who smelled like trouble. They nabbed hundreds, enforcers, lieutenants, even a few bosses, and splashed it all over the news. The crackdowns kept coming, especially when drugs started flooding the streets and the public got loud about it. In the 2000s, Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra turned it up a notch, declaring a war on drugs that saw thousands arrested or gunned down, Chao included. The body count was high, and for a minute, it looked like the syndicates might actually break. But the Chao didn't just roll over. They've got a knack for bending with the wind. When the heat was on, they'd scatter. Lieutenants would vanish into the hills, bosses would hole up in quiet villas, and the whole operation would go quiet until the storm passed. They'd shift their routes too, finding new back roads or bribing different cops to keep the goods moving. Thaksin's war hit hard, but it didn't kill them. It taught them. They learned to keep a lower profile, letting smaller fry take the fall while the big fish swam deeper. By the time the next government came in, the Chao were back. slicker and smarter, like they'd been taking notes the whole time. The cat-and-mouse game hasn't stopped. Every few years, a new task force or hotshot politician vows to dismantle them. In 2021, the cops busted a ring in Chonburi, hauling in millions in cash and drugs, claiming they'd crippled a major player. But the locals just shrugged. Everyone knew the real bosses were still out there, sipping coffee somewhere safe. The syndicates have a way of shedding skin, lose a crew, grow a new one. They've got the money to wait out the raids and the connections to know when they're coming. It's not that the government's weak, it's that the Chao are built to last, rooted too deep to rip out clean. Now the world's changing, and they're changing with it. Globalization's opened doors they never had before. New markets, new tech, new ways to play dirty. They're not just smuggling dope across the Mekong anymore. They're tapping into digital cash, moving money through apps and crypto so it's harder to trace. Online gambling's a gold mine too. Why run a sweaty backroom when you can host a site offshore and rake in bets from Bangkok to Berlin? They've got guys who know computers now, not just machetes, and they're linking up with crews in places like China or Russia, turning local rackets into something global. The future's a wild card. If the Chao keep riding this wave, they could grow into something even Bangkok can't ignore. Less godfathers, more international mobsters. Drugs might still be their bread and butter, but digital crime could be the jam, letting them hide behind screens instead of bribes. The government's got drones and data now, though, so the fight's getting sharper on both sides. Will they stay kings of the provinces or go big and risk it all? Hard to say. One thing's for sure. They've survived worse than raids and promises. They're not just tough, they're slippery, always finding a crack to slither through. That's what keeps them breathing, and Thailand watching. The Chao aren't just criminals, they're power brokers, shaping Thailand's underground economy while evading justice. Despite government crackdowns, they continue to evolve, adapting to modern crime and deepening their political ties. Will Thailand ever dismantle these provincial mafias, or are they too entrenched to fall? What do you think? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video and want more insights into the world's most dangerous criminal organizations, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We've got more crime stories coming your way.